What if you could stop fighting your problems and instead just make them disappear? Well, today we're going to break down a really powerful framework that does exactly that. See, it's not about winning battles. It's about changing the entire battlefield by introducing one simple thing: light.
So let's start with a feeling I think we all know. That sense that you're just stuck, like you're fighting this endless uphill battle.
You know that feeling, right? It's this exhausting cycle. You put out one fire and boom, another one pops up somewhere else. You finally get your finances sorted out, and then a health issue appears out of nowhere. You get that under control, and suddenly a relationship gets, well, complicated. It just feels like a constant draining fight on every single front.
To really understand this new approach, let's try a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine all your life's problems, every worry, every anxiety, every single challenge, as just one single dark room.
Okay, so what's our natural instinct? It's what you see on the left. We try to fight the darkness head on. We try to scoop it out, bucket by bucket. It's an endless, completely exhausting job. But there's a much simpler way. Think about it for a second. You don't fight darkness, do you? You just turn on a light. And the light doesn't argue with the dark. Its very presence makes the darkness totally irrelevant.
So that's a nice little metaphor, right? But how do we actually take this simple idea and apply it to the messy, complex problems in our own lives? Where is that light switch?
This right here, this is the core idea. We're calling it the principle of light. And it means you stop pouring all of your precious energy into fixing what's wrong. Instead, you shift your entire focus to actively, intentionally building what's right, to introducing so much light into your life that the darkness literally has nowhere left to hide. Now, to make this really practical, let's expand on that metaphor. If your problems are the darkness, then your life itself, well, your life is the house that the darkness is in. And this house, it has a very specific structure.
Check this out. Your life is basically built on these 4 key domains. Down at the bottom, the foundation of everything is your inner self, your internal state, your peace, your happiness. That foundation supports the 2 main pillars, your health on one side and your relationships on the other. And then, protecting the whole thing is the roof, your finances. Now, the key thing to get here is that they're all connected. A crack in one pillar, say in your relationships, doesn't just stay there. It weakens the entire structure, and it casts a shadow over everything else.
So if our life is a house, and our problems are the shadows lurking inside, how do we light the whole thing up? Well, the answer isn't to run around chasing shadows from room to room. The answer is to install powerful lamps that illuminate the entire house all at once.
This is the big strategic shift. We're moving from a defensive game of reacting to individual problems to an offensive one of proactively building light. The idea is to cultivate 7 key lamps. These are 7 forms of what we're going to call comprehensive wealth, that together they just light up the entire house, leaving 0 room for darkness.
And that's because true wealth, real wealth, is so much more than just money. It's really divided into 2 big categories. You've got the material wealth, the stuff we can see and measure, things like our physical health and our finances. But just as important, maybe even more important, is the non-material wealth, the stuff that exists inside of us. And here they are, the 7 lamps. But I want you to notice the flow here on this slide because it's really important. The foundation is built on 4 non-material lamps: wisdom, mindset, character, and virtue. These are your internal lights. And when these are shining brightly, they naturally power the 3 material lamps: our capacity and skills, our physical health, and, yep, our material wealth. You get the internal lights right, and the external ones just kind of follow. And when all 7 of them are lit, your house is absolutely filled with light.
Okay, now we get to the most powerful part of this whole idea. How in the world do we build these non-material lamps? I mean, how do you cultivate things that are, by their very nature, invisible?
So, let's borrow a concept from economics, of all places. It's called non-materialization. This is when you add some kind of intangible value to a physical object. For instance, a plain old vase might be worth $20, but the story that it once belonged to a famous artist, that can make it priceless. That story, that's the non-material value.
And here it is. This is the key question. We see this principle at work with products and brands all the time. But what happens when we intentionally, deliberately apply this exact same process, this process of adding intangible value to our own being?
Look, society often values us based on step one, right? Our material output, our skills, our job, our income. But the real path to profound, deep value is in step two, cultivating what's within. This is the whole process of non-materializing the self, consciously building those invisible assets like your wisdom and your character. That, right there, is how you become truly valuable.
And that leads us to the final and most critical question. I mean, it's one thing to say, go build wisdom, or you should cultivate character. But how do you actually do that? How do you build something that you can't even see? Well, the secret is to actually reverse the process. If non-materializing is all about adding invisible value, then the real work for us is materializing the non-material. What does that mean? It means we take a huge abstract idea, like wisdom, and we break it down. We use a framework to make it tangible, to give it actual steps and components that we can see and work on. It's all about taking the invisible and making it buildable. So, the ultimate takeaway from all of this is pretty simple. Stop trying to scoop darkness out of a room. Your real job is to become the light. And you do this not by battling your problems, but by systematically building your inner, non-material wealth. The journey isn't about chasing away the darkness, it's about cultivating a light inside yourself that is so bright, so powerful, that shadows simply cease to exist.